The Titanic. Even more than a century after it sank, its name still carries weight. It was called the greatest ship in the world, an unsinkable marvel of engineering. But in less than 3 hours on the night of April 14th, 1912, the Titanic disappeared beneath the icy waters of the North Atlantic. How could something so grand, so advanced for its time, simply vanish? That is the mystery. The problem begins with the belief that Titanic was invincible. Built by Harland and Wolff in Belfast, the ship was over 882 feet long and weighed about 46,000 tons. It was designed with 16 watertight compartments and equipped with advanced safety features for its era. The White Star Line promoted it as the largest, safest, and most luxurious ship in the world. Passengers and crew felt a sense of security that would soon be shattered. On April 10, 1912, Titanic set sail from Southampton, England, on its maiden voyage to New York. On board were more than 2,200 passengers and crew, from wealthy first-class travelers to immigrants hoping for a new life in America. Titanic made stops in Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, Ireland, before heading into the open Atlantic. For 4 days, the voyage went smoothly. Titanic moved at high speed, about 21 knots, and the atmosphere on board was one of celebration. But beneath that excitement, danger lurked. The North Atlantic waters were filled with icebergs. Other ships in the region, such as the Californian and the Mesaba, sent multiple warnings by wireless telegraph. At least 7 warnings were received on April 14th alone. And yet, Titanic continued full speed ahead. Why? This is where the agitation sets in. The culture of shipping at the time prized speed and punctuality. White Star Line was in fierce competition with rival companies. Titanic's captain, Edward Smith, was experienced and nearing retirement. Some historians believe he wanted to make the voyage memorable by arriving early, but ignoring ice warnings was a grave mistake. At 11:40 p.m. on April 14th, the lookout in the crow's nest spotted an iceberg directly ahead. They rang the bell and telephoned the bridge with a warning. First Officer William Murdoch ordered the ship to turn hard to port, and engines reversed, but it was too late. Titanic's starboard side scraped the iceberg for about 7 seconds. The collision punctured 5 of the ship's watertight compartments. Here's the critical detail. Titanic could stay afloat with 4 compartments flooded, but not 5. Water began pouring in, and the fate of the ship was sealed. But even then, there was time to save lives. The Titanic carried lifeboats, yet it didn't have enough for everyone. Maritime safety regulations at the time only required ships to carry lifeboats for a fraction of their total capacity. Titanic had 20 lifeboats, enough for about 1,178 people. But there were over 2,200 on board. To make matters worse, many lifeboats left partially empty. Passengers and crew didn't believe the ship would actually sink, so they hesitated to board. There was also confusion about who was allowed on the boats. The women and children first policy was inconsistently applied, leaving lifeboats departing with as few as 12 passengers, though they could hold over 60. As Titanic sank, wireless operators Jack Phillips and Harold Bride sent desperate distress signals. The closest ship, the Californian, was only about 20 miles away, but its radio operator had gone off duty, so the calls went unanswered. The Carpathia, a Cunard Line ship, responded immediately, but it was 58 miles away. Travelling as fast as it could through dangerous ice fields, the Carpathia would not arrive until hours after Titanic had already disappeared. By 2:20 a.m. on April 15th, Titanic was gone. More than 1,500 lives were lost. Only 705 survived. It was one of the deadliest peacetime maritime disasters in history. Now we ask, how could such a disaster happen? The obvious answer is the iceberg, but the true causes run deeper. One factor was the complacency about Titanic's safety. The ship was promoted as practically unsinkable, which may have led to overconfidence among passengers and crew. That same belief contributed to the insufficient number of lifeboats. Why prepare for the unthinkable? Another factor was speed. Many experts agree that if Titanic had slowed down after receiving iceberg warnings, the crew would have had more time to react. Even a slight reduction in speed could have changed the outcome. There were also flaws in design and construction. The steel used in Titanic's hull became brittle in cold temperatures. The rivets that held the plates together may have been made of lower quality iron in certain parts of the ship. These weaknesses meant the iceberg's impact caused more damage than it might have otherwise. And then there's the human element. The crew was not fully trained for an evacuation of that magnitude. Some officers hesitated to fill lifeboats to capacity for fear the davits would break. Communication between decks was poor, leading to confusion about orders and procedures. These factors combined to turn an accident into a catastrophe. So what was the solution? In the aftermath of the Titanic disaster, major changes were made to maritime safety. The International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea, SOLAS, was established in 1914, requiring ships to carry enough lifeboats for everyone on board. Lifeboat drills became mandatory. Wireless operators had to be on duty 24 hours a day. Ice patrols were created to monitor dangerous waters in the North Atlantic. These reforms have saved countless lives in the century since Titanic sank. But the mystery and lessons of Titanic remain important. One mystery involves the role of other ships nearby. The Californian, as mentioned earlier, was close enough to potentially rescue many passengers if it had responded to distress signals. Its crew later claimed they saw rockets but didn't realize they were signals of distress. Investigations after the disaster criticized the Californian's captain and crew for not acting. Another mystery is why Titanic didn't carry more lifeboats. White Star Line had actually considered installing 48 lifeboats, but they decided against it because they believed it would clutter the deck and spoil the ship's appearance. This decision cost hundreds of lives. There are even conspiracy theories about Titanic's sinking. Some suggest it was switched with its sister ship, the Olympic, as part of an insurance scam. Others believe the iceberg impact was not the true cause. But the overwhelming evidence from survivors, wreckage, and historical research supports the established narrative. The iceberg caused irreparable damage, and a chain of human errors sealed the ship's fate. In 1985, the wreck of Titanic was discovered about 12,500 feet below the surface of the North Atlantic by a team led by Robert Ballard. The discovery confirmed many details of survivor accounts and revealed the ship had broken into two main pieces as it sank. Exploring the wreck has provided insight into how the disaster unfolded. It has also raised questions about how best to preserve the site as a memorial to those who perished. Over the years, Titanic has captured the imagination of millions through books, films, and documentaries. James Cameron's 1997 film Titanic became one of the most successful movies of all time, though it romanticized some aspects of the story. But behind the drama and legend lies a simple truth. Titanic was a tragedy born from a mix of nature's power and human overconfidence. So how do we honor that truth? By remembering the lives lost and the lessons learned. Titanic's story reminds us that no technology is truly invincible, that safety must never be sacrificed for speed or appearance, and that preparation saves lives. It also reminds us of the fragility of life. In less than 3 hours, the greatest ship in the world went from a symbol of progress to a wreck at the bottom of the ocean. For the passengers, many of whom had just begun new chapters in their lives, the voyage was supposed to be a chance for opportunity, adventure, or reunion. Instead, it became a struggle for survival. Today, the Titanic lies in darkness 2.5 miles beneath the ocean. Rust-eating bacteria are slowly consuming the wreck, and experts estimate it could collapse completely within the next few decades. But the memory of Titanic will endure, because this is more than a story about a ship. It is a story about people, choices, and consequences. The mystery of Titanic's disappearance has been largely solved, but its lessons are still relevant. The Titanic reminds us to stay humble, to respect nature, and to value human life above all else. That is how we keep its story alive.